Lifestyle balance and social life.
What is this?
Hugo, we are live by the Q&A from the Instagram questions.
Yes, we are live. It's Sunday morning here on the
Yes.
Plaitas Resort. Yes, for the Q&A from the Instagram questions we had last week. So yeah, let's get into it.
Let's go for it. Is Hyrox Elite 15 your priority or another sport?
I would say High Rocks is priority, yes. Elite 15, no. So obviously I get this question quite a lot about the Elite 15 and the qualification, and not least regarding the last chance qualifier that was this year. But the short answer is Hyrox is my priority, but Elite 15 is not. It's never been the goal actually. So decided before the last chance qualifier in Barcelona that if I would have qualified, I would have not taken my spot because that's not my drive and motivation this season. This season, no. Next season, likely.
Wat dit nästa man? You want to challenge me with some Swedish?
My next goal. Next goal, training wise, is to do a sub 56 Hyrox Men Pro in a couple of months.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
I don't see myself anywhere in 10 years, to be honest. I don't have that long time frame of my ambitions and aspiration. My vision is not that far. So it's incredibly hard to answer that question. But I would assume it's something sport related, sport or more athlete related, because I'm quite convinced that that will still be my passion in a couple of years, but more likely in a more professional setting, maybe at a resort, maybe at a sports related company, or any club or federation maybe, but definitely sport related.
What drives you to do all of that what you are doing with passion?
It's a good question. So yeah, my ambitions has last year not been to win over anyone else than myself. And like before in the early of my career when I was doing more other stuff like triathlon and also played handball and football, it was also always the ambition to win. But in the later years, and not least because of the community I have around me, the value for me is even more to influence and inspire people to do their own athletic journey in this context. So that's definitely what drives me the most. So even if I don't perform at my best, I know it's still a lot of value for other people, and that's more than enough.
Is your goal in Hyrox to get into the Elite 15?
Pass.
What does it take to be an elite level athlete?
It takes, of course, the regular stuff, as we know. It takes dedication, it takes structure, it takes a lot of planning. A lot of people will also say it's sacrifices in other areas of life, but I don't see it that way. Because if you're committed to doing something, if you want to become an elite athlete, there are no sacrifices, obviously, because you're doing what you want and you're working towards your aspirations and goals. But like more physically, of course, it takes a lot of training over a long period of time that you need to accumulate over years. But it's not only about the volume, obviously. It also comes with a lot of smart choices in the daily life, how to manage training, load, but not least stress. I think stress is one of the main pillars that you need to consider when going into such commitment, and not just in training but in life in general. So it's a very important part of it, but it takes dedication, it takes a lot of time over many years. It takes that you are doing smart choices over a long period of time, but also in the small context like training sessions and food choices, and it also takes emotional and mental attachment to what you're doing.
What's the long-term fitness and life goal?
Wow. Long-term fitness and life goal. I think fitness goal relates to what I compete in now in Hyrox. So my long-term, in terms of 1 year perspective, goal in Hyrox is to win the Hyrox World Championships 2026 in Stockholm.
If you could choose any place in the world to live, where would it be?
Currently, I couldn't imagine any better place to live than here at Plaitas, where I live now, because I have everything I need and more than there. Not just in terms of training facilities, but I have an amazing team and I have amazing support from everybody around me. What else? I mean, the food is great. It's always sunny, so I couldn't imagine any more better place to be at currently.
Background, education, and life. What was your life like before now? Full-time job.
So to start with, I've for a quite long time been a very dedicated athlete. That has been like the pillar in my life for a very long time. Not necessarily professionally, but like in the time investment I put in it, that has been a long commitment for me for a long time. So I see myself as an athlete, even not like professionally a full-time athlete like now before, but also always very committed to the physical development and athletic development of myself. In my early days, I worked in the military for a couple of years, so that was obviously a full-time job, and that was also a very challenging period in terms of combining my athletic ambitions with my job that was also obviously very physical. And after that, I went into triathlon for a couple of years. Also, in terms of full-time commitment, I worked abroad as an instructor for Apollo and Plaitas. I've been to Plaitas for 6 or 7 years in total, coming almost every year. I also worked a personal trainer in Stockholm, where I lived in Sweden, an instructor, and more in terms of as a consultant in the health and fitness industry as well, on a freelance basis. So quite flexible, always been very flexible with what I'm doing, but I've definitely had periods where I'm working a lot of time as well and combining it with almost full-time training.
What did you study?
So yeah, I've done quite a lot of studies throughout the years because the reason for that is because I find it really, I would say, like relaxing, and it's a big contrast to the training and the physical effort to like really step into this other box of academics or working with your head, obviously, and more mentally, intellectually. That's why I always had that by the side when I was doing a lot of sports as well, because then I could dig down like into to a book or a certain topic or some science on the side of my very high training ambitions, and it was very like relaxing to have these two contrast and context. So I have studied bachelor business management and master in product management. I've studied risk and security management, but also training related topics like sports psychology and sports management. And more than that, the list is quite long. I've also studied philosophy, international relations, business innovation and AI, obviously, recent years. That's a few of the topics that I've been studying. So I always had like 1 or 2 courses on this parallel with my training because I found it so mental beneficial.
Where did you play handball at young age?
I played handball in Helton, which is in Karlstad in Sweden, where I went to the National Sports High School, and then I also played handball in Stockholm at Bolton in the Division 1.
What is your educational level and does it help you with your professional sports career?
So I replied to most of it before, but yeah, obviously the training related topics like sports management and sports psychology, not least, and philosophy and psychology definitely gives me like a broader understanding of the industry and the business in terms of the more professional aspects of it, like working with sponsors and collaborations and partners. So it's not just training, it's like a bigger perspective in terms of business. But also, of course, the psychology part is also very important. Everything from how to, yeah, like tricks in training, how to manage when you need to dig deep, and also not least performance psychology when it comes to racing.
What's your backstory? Have you always been this dedicated to fitness?
Yes, the answer is yes. I've always been. I mean, fitness is a quite broad term, but to what I used to call it athletic development, yes, it's been a very big part of my life since I was 16, 17 years old. Obviously earlier than that, but like more focused on myself from that age. So yes.
How did you get into sports?
Yeah, I grown up on a farm, and I was always very active in my childhood, obviously, and then it just translated very well into more sports related activities, just like football, handball, floorball. We had a lot of in Sweden as well, like those common sports that you used to do as a kid, but also athletics and different kind of sports in school, you know, activities. Got into 14, 15, 16 years old, I more started to like develop into more of this training and more focusing on getting better and performance, obviously. So the basis, I was always very active. And then secondly, I had a very active childhood with, of course, parents that supported me on all sorts of sports and activities. So it was very natural for me to go in this direction, and then I just keep on building it up.
Training, strategy, and philosophy.
Strategy and philosophy in training. Yeah, so my
No,
training.
that's the topic.
Okay. Okay. One more time, please.
How often should do a run if he does 5 till 6 training days
Oh yeah.
per week?
How often should you run if you train 5 to 6 times a week? It obviously depends on what's your goal with the training. If you're training for purely running, probably you can run 4 or 5 times of those 6 times. If you're training for Hyrox, which this probably is related to, I think you should do 3 or 4 times a week of those 6 running. So 3 if it's 5 days, and 4 definitely if it's 6 days. Because the running volume and the running progression that's something that way too many athletes neglect and definitely need more time to build up.
How do you maintain leg strength while running loads?
Yeah, this is the question. It's always about the balance of the fatigue in the body, obviously, because you cannot accumulate too much of each at the same time without having stagnation or that you feel that you don't progress. And it's always a balance for me as well. It's very much comes down to the tactics, how to integrate these sessions in the week. So my tip in general, I think, is to try to always plan so you are fresh on the strength sessions, because those demands a lot more neuromuscular and muscular, obviously, effort to have a good results from, this, especially if you're doing heavy lifts. And the running training, you can definitely be a little bit more fatigued doing. So that's the basic tip. More than that, I think that you should definitely build up both of them progressively. I mean, if you can do 3 runs a week and 3 strength sessions, lower body per week, that's great. And you can have them on different days and you don't need to compromise so much of each one of them. And I think if you go from there and don't go too hard on your runs, you will definitely have improvements in both of them. A good tip is also to do a little bit more on the treadmill, because it definitely deloads your muscles a little bit compared to running outside.
What's the one thing people underestimate when it comes to training for Hyrox?
I think most people underestimate the power of going a little bit lower intensity for a little bit longer duration. Something that I speak of a lot, but way too many athletes, they go way too hard. And I think many athletes would benefit both from a performance perspective, but also from like a capacity perspective, to lower the intensity a little bit, but work a little bit longer durations, and also to save yourself from stupid injuries.
Which tips do you have for a 17 years old Hyrox athlete?
If you're 17 years old, I think that you can probably start training just like anyone, in any age. But for me and for most people, you just need to have a good progression over time and again, control the intensity. When I was in my younger age, I did very much high intensity efforts. So I think it's very important to be patient in that age. But try to be as versatile as possible. Hyrox is definitely very much of a hybrid sport. It includes a lot of different movements already. But even wider, try more types of training to build like that really athletic foundation. Because you're obviously not going to peak when you're 18, you're going to peak a few years ahead. So think a little bit long term, even if it's easy to rush into things at that age, and try to not go as hard as you can every session and be versatile in your training.
Why don't you focus your training 100% towards just Hyrox training?
Because Hyrox hasn't been the only reason why I'm doing sports lately, obviously, because I find a lot of other values by doing different sports like triathlon or these other fitness races, or if it's triathlon, I find a great motivation in doing different sports. And I'm also very versatile as an athlete. From a mental perspective, it's also very beneficial to have like different competitions to focus on. So not just mentally digging yourself a grave in the Hyrox space. It can also be very it gets very intense, obviously, but not least, yeah, I am quite versatile as an athlete, and I like to explore like my physical capacities outside of Hyrox as well.
Do you have a training split between strength conditioning and running?
Yeah, I have a training plan. I think we'll get back to how I train currently, but definitely I structure my training and my training days into running, more functional conditioning or functional stamina, strength training, erg training, obviously, and then I have a small part with more low intensity training like swimming and biking.
How do you structure your zone 5 training?
Yes, to start with, it's a very small amount of my total volume that I do in the zone 5. On a regular basis is only when I do my testing, which is currently once every 5th week, when I do my 5Ks on the ergs and 10Ks on the run, for example. Then I very few times integrate the zone 5 training. I do have like more power sessions, but it's very rare that I push the zone 5 very much. But I might also incorporate maximum 1 day or 2 sessions on the same day with up to zone 5, as you call it, the high intensity, above 90% of max heart rate.
How to improve strength while maintaining or also improve endurance?
I would say if you want to improve the strength, you need to definitely go to the gym and do the heavy lifts. And what's important is to not, as I said before, to be fresh on those sessions. And what you can do, at the other hand, if you still want to improve your cardiovascular capacity, so you can work on other different aerobic exercises. So you don't always need to run because it generates a lot of fatigue in the legs. Then you can use the ski erg to have a good variation if you're doing leg strength the same day. You can also incorporate the bike or the row or cross trainer, whatever it is, like to just work with the cardiovascular capacity, and that will give you an overall performance enhancement for your endurance, obviously. But if you want to get endurant and good in some specific movement, like running or like skiing, then obviously you need to spend more time in that domain. And that then you might need to compromise on the specific leg training or specific upper body training if that's your ultimate goal. But it's not black and white, and you can definitely build up both of them.
Now you will have 3 questions in one. Could you do a Hyrox run with tips? Why you do each move? Also prep recovery advice.
I assume this is a Hyrox focused running session. This is station based.
I don't know, the person is not really clear. Huh?
I think we will answer this question in the coming questions. Yeah.
Okay. Do you ever deload?
So deload, I assume it's a quite big reduction in training volume and so on from training. Over the years, not really. I usually have, not over a longer period of time, I usually have 1 day a week, today, Sunday. This is my pure recovery day. I do everything by feel. I do some low intensity aerobic training, maybe some mobility movements. Usually I go swim. It's also very low impact on the body. So that's my weekly deload, I must say. I keep my balance steady over the year.
Training philosophy?
Yeah, so my philosophy, a lot of people think that it's always and only about high volume. That's not really the case, I would say. I do believe in high volume, but I believe that the more you can train, the better you can become. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the more you train, the better you become, but the better you can become if you're doing it in the right way and if you're doing the right things. And I'm also very confident and convinced that everybody doesn't respond the same to like high volume or high intensity. But my philosophy is definitely, I believe that you need to put in a lot of time to really achieve your highest potential at some point, and that might take a long time to achieve that volume that you need to be able to reach your potential. More than that, my philosophy is that I think, and from my experience, that to be as versatile as possible is very beneficial for you. So you are not focusing too much on single movements or single patterns, body patterns, not least because of injury prevention. But if you're gonna excel as an athlete, you definitely want to incorporate as many movements and physical elements as possible, because they will all come together at some point. So I believe in volume, I believe in versatility.
Best way to break a plateau on ski erg splits?
So I assume it's the question is regarding if you feel like you're training and you're not coming any further in this case for the ski erg. I mean, number one is to increase the volume. That's one tip, and try and evaluate if it works. Like if you get more time in the zone, if it makes you go faster, if it creates larger capacity. The second one is also, of course, to play with the intensity sessions. I think if you do too much of low intensity on a certain movement, you will definitely learn your body to move less efficient to some point. From a biomechanical perspective, and then it can be very beneficial to do more of power training or very high intensity training, in this case also with a higher damper setting, to really challenge the neuromuscular system and to have like something different to create another training stimuli. So I believe increase the volume a little bit, add some training sessions with high power output to really work with the stroke power and efficiency.
Can you tell us something about your training plan?
So my current training plan looks like Monday, Wednesday and Friday is 3 sessions. Is the ski, row and run. All aerobic efforts. On the Tuesday and Thursday, also quite similar, is one strength session, both incorporating deadlift, one more focused on the pull movement, and the other one more focused on the push movements. And then the second session of those days is a running combined with a functional station, plus additional 30 minutes of lower intensity erg. So it's like a more functional conditioning workout. Nothing too hard, but mostly to get the fatigue resistance. And on the Saturday, it's quite fluid. I try to keep one training day more like to what I feel to do, but obviously it's ergs at some point, some erg threshold, probably up to 45-60 minutes, and then I will later in the day do probably a swim and one more of the functional training, more high rocks inspired workout. And Sundays, recovery, usually bike and swim.
Do you train hierarch specific movements, ergs, burpee broad jump, wall balls in zone 2 or just runs?
So number one, I usually don't do zone 2 runs. But to answer the question, yes, I do more conditioning workouts in a lower intensity as well. Definitely.
For someone trying to get faster, fitter and leaner, what's some advice?
Faster, fitter and leaner. Number one, stop eating shit. Look over your diet, definitely. Focus on good lean protein sources and eat like an athlete. Number two is to start with the strength training. I think like strength training and hypertrophy training is the best way to train if you want to look good. But also in terms of losing energy and body fat, you need to definitely do some more aerobic training as well, and it doesn't really matter what it is. You need to stay active, whether it's erging or it's biking or it's jogging or running. Do what feels you motivated and try to get that volume up as high as possible, and you will definitely come in shape if there is no other certain goal.
Why do you prefer run training on treadmill instead of road or track?
I wouldn't say that I necessarily prefer treadmill. I really much like the track. I would probably like to go there more than I do now. But why I do so much training on the treadmill is that I can put down so much more time in zone and volume on the treadmill compared to outdoor. Because I think as a heavier athlete, you have a greater benefit of using the indoor treadmill because it reduces the overall fatigue in your legs. And I definitely feel when I do my treadmill runs, I can do a 15-kilometer threshold run on the treadmill, and I feel like quite fresh in the legs the day after. But if I do, let's say 20 times 800 on the track in threshold, I feel really sore in definitely especially my calves, but also in the legs the day after. So I can accumulate so much more time in my training zone on the treadmill. That's why I found it so beneficial. And it's also very measurable with the pace, and you can have the hydration. You can control a lot of variables that you cannot control outside. So that's also very important to me.
What's the best compromised running session you do?
I don't necessarily do compromised training sessions. I incorporate those more functional stations into some of the workouts where I do running into, for say, lunges and wall balls. But it's not, the objective is not to have compromised running. It's more to build the fatigue resistance in the movement. So I don't plan any runs to be compromised and expect to have like some sort of progression or results from the running training when I'm fatigued. So the answer is no, I don't.
What should be the training schedule of an ultra marathon runner?
Training for an ultra, of course, that's a domain I haven't done too much, only one time actually. But I think that you should definitely get a high training volume. That's obvious. You need to build it over time. But also, I think it's very important in that case, and also training for marathon or what it is, to not to get too little time in a higher zone. I think it's very beneficial for runners to work with the muscular efficiency and the movement economy also in higher intensities, and I think it makes a lot of sense both in terms of biomechanics and other factors to have more time in higher zones, and also doing these very long runs takes definitely a lot of effort on your joints and knees and muscles, and that's why I usually prescribe to my athletes going for longer distances that they have rather like 1 hour in, let's call it a zone 3 on a 5 scale, rather than 2 hours in a zone 2 or zone 1 effort, because you will still get like good aerobic advantage, but for a little bit less impact on your muscles and body, because the volumes can get like really high in those domains.
Well, that's also the next one. Start with zone 1 and then increase.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. It's good examples like in swimming and in running as well. If you run in zone 1, as you call it, so 1 on a 5 scale, and this is the pace where you're not running, you're jogging. It's not the same movement. So I mean, you're not training running. What you're doing is obviously you're preparing your body to be able to run. You can of course strengthen your knees and ligaments, but it's not the actual training. So if you're in a very early stage, yeah, definitely you need to start walking and then you need to start jogging before you can run. But if you're a runner or if you're an athlete, I don't think you should spend so much time in these very low zones, because it's very far away from where you're going to compete or where you want to be. It's not the same movement, which means we're not working on the correct way with our bodies to develop in the certain domain we want to excel in.
How have you built up your incredible training volume?
Yeah, it's simple progression over years. I started very early doing very much training. So when I went to high school, I did up to 5 training sessions per day and playing handball. And the thing was, back time I would say 3 out of 5 training sessions was almost always to max effort, because that was the philosophy back then. No pain, no gain, and if you're not almost puking in the end of the session, you didn't do it good enough, right? So yeah, but I stayed injury free for so long time. But I think the short answer is yeah, you need to build it progressively over time. That's the answer. Also, very important is that the more versatile you are and the more types of sports you're doing, the higher volume you can get, right? So if you're only running, you will hit your roof quite early for where you cannot accumulate more training volume. If you have the run and then you can add a little bit of biking, you can add a little bit of skiing and a little bit of strength training, the total picture will enable you to have even more training volume. So if you're an endurance athlete and you're focused on running, yeah, you do the running up to the limit where you feel like you cannot accumulate anymore, and you will add with something else, and you will have a total higher training volume.
What's your thinking of high volume versus high intensity?
I think you need both.
How many times per day do you train and how does your usual training look?
Already sent that, right?
I'll follow you on Instagram.
I publish almost all my training, so it's a good tip.
Threshold or zone 2 running if time restricted?
Threshold definitely is the answer to that question, and I would say the less time you have to train, the higher intensity you can go. So if you train 3 times a week, I definitely think you can go quite high intensity on a lot of those sessions. But if you train every day or even multiple times per day, you need to take down intensity, yes. And then threshold is a very good trade-off of volume and intensity.
Training content, request and specifics. Hardest 60-minute Hyrox workout you know.
Probably Hyrox simulation, huh?
Show me a muscle up. This is not really a question. It is a question. It's not a question for now. Examples of low intensity zone 2 exercises on ergs, rows and skis.
Exercises. Then you go a lower pace.
Why do you do hard sessions, 10K row, before Hyrox events?
Let me answer with the questions. Why do I PR on a Hyrox 2 days in a row after doing 2 sessions in the morning on the first day and 1 session in the morning on the other day? So yeah, to start with, these 10K rows I've done before my races, those are not hard sessions. Those are like a jog. And that's quite natural for someone with a high training volume like me or any other elite athlete to have like some sort of movement in the beginning of the day. It's very natural because that's what we do every day, all year round. To stop just moving days before would not be beneficial, I think, either mentally or for the digestive system or physically. And obviously, what I've accomplished with my strategies is quite remarkable, and I also think it means that you can perform with different strategies, and it's not just to lay down on the sofa leading up to a race, and that it's important to stay active. And obviously I've done quite well with my results, but I'm also evaluating it. I'm not saying that I should train so much and so hard leading up to every race maybe at all the time, but what I've achieved is remarkable, and yeah, I cannot neglect that the best results I did was during a 20-hour training week, and I finished it up with a 56:30 Hyrox after doing a 10K row. So it's not black and white.
What is for you the hardest during an Hyrox Pro race?
Obviously, is the running. I think like I can recover quite well on the stations, but the running is always where I need to struggle and dig the most, definitely. So yeah, the running.
How much do you eat per day? Calories and macros.
So I don't on a daily basis count my intake and my calories. I've done a lot previous, obviously, and I do it from time to time just to evaluate and see if I can make any improvements. But a general training day, I eat somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000 a regular training day, 6,000 and 7,000 calories. And I would say my macros is probably 50 carbs, 30 protein, and 20 fat, I would say, in general. Depending a little bit on what type of training I'm doing as well. But yeah, I would say that's the case.
What is your best 2 kilometer test in row work?
I saw this question. I don't think I ever done a 2K. I have. I did it on this, I did it on the Swedish National Rowing Championships in the end of 2023. I think it was, could it be 620 maybe? I think it was something like 620, yeah.
When did you start doing Hyrox and have you always had good results?
I did my first Hyrox in Stockholm, December 2023, so it's about 1.5 years ago. And then I did a 109 in the Men Pro. I was not very satisfied with that at the time, but I guess it's still a quite solid result. I didn't have that year. I had very low training in aerobic zones. I didn't do a lot of running. I did some erging, of course, some running intervals from time to time, but I was focusing really on strength and powerlifting at that time. But yeah, I did a 109 Stockholm 23.
How did you start?
I signed up for a race and I got to work.
When did you start endurance training? Too late in mid 20s?
If it's too late in mid-20s, definitely not. Well, I started quite early in my days, having more focus, especially on the running, probably when I was 16. I wouldn't say it was endurance, but it was like aerobic training, more focused on the run, but very much high intensity. But then I had a couple of years as a triathlete where I did like a lot more training volume in lower intensity zones. But starting in mid-20s, definitely not. I think you can still be in your prime in the 30s or mid-30s even. So it's all about having the same journey as someone who starts when they're 15. You need to start from the same level and start building progressively from there. So go get it.
Lifestyle, balance, and social life. Work social training split? How do you manage training and social life? Do you have free time for friends and maybe a relationship?
So interesting question. People ask me this a lot. So my reply is there is no split. And no, I don't historically and for the most part of my life don't spend time with friends like most people do. And I think we discussed it the other day. I don't have this split with like work, training, friends, family, because I believe if you are at a place where you're doing what you love and with people that you love or want to be with, you don't need to have this split. And this is an excellent example for where I can do my hobby, my training. I can integrate it with my work, which is also related to the training. And I have the people around me that I really enjoy to be with. Those can be called my friends, you know. And I also make like some sort of living of it. That's all combined in one. So it's not like I need to choose. It's not like I need to prioritize. Try to do what you want, where you want, with who you want, and you will have like the full picture, and you will always be in a context that you love. So for me, it's very simple. There is no split. Is the answer good enough? Yeah.
It's clear.
Yeah.
Nutrition, recovery, and supplements.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Recovery tips for high volume athletes.
I mean, recovery tips for high volume athletes is, I think, the same as for any athlete. But I think it's even more important for the high volume athletes like myself to have a good management of the stress levels, because obviously you have a lot of time for the training and you have less time for other obligations in life. So this stress balance is definitely important, something that we'll probably come back to. But I think for high volume athletes, if you do like a lot of training in the lower zone, you might want to consider to have like one longer training session a day than two separate training sessions a day. I think in terms of recovery, both mentally and physically, that can be beneficial. So you combine it together and try to be more effective in your training, and then you can have more time like recovering and preparing for the next session.
What supplements do you take?
Yeah, I take very few supplements. That's always been my philosophy. In my early career, I never took any supplements. I was totally against any sort of supplements, even like nutrition and so on. So I had a lot of years without any pills, any even protein powder or like gainer or anything like that. So it was a long time I didn't take any supplements. Now I take omega-3 because I think I get not enough of it from my diet. I don't eat that much of fish, only like once a week here. So I think it's necessary from many standpoints, not least a hormonal balance standpoint. And I also take creatine, yes. That's like the two pillars of supplements I take to my diet, not included like sport nutrition here now.
Supplement do you preconize for Hyrox athletes?
What supplements I recommend for Hyrox athletes? And Hyrox athlete isn't any different than any other athlete, I would say, in general, you know, in terms of health with fitness and well-being. And I cannot answer that question because we're all so different. We all have the different micronutritional needs. So if you think something is wrong with you, then, or if you have an imbalance somewhere, if you feel like a certain way, if you don't feel good, then you need to go get a test and you can see if you have any deficiency somewhere. But I don't think you should take a lot of supplements just to make sure you're not getting enough of something. If you're going to take a supplement, you're going to do it because you have a deficiency in some micronutrient or some substance in your body. That's the baseline for why you should take supplements, I think. Otherwise, I believe that your body will work out most of things. If you take too much supplements from some sort, and some supplements is very evident, then your body will stop to produce it at some point. And obviously, we don't want to rely on the supplements. We can have them as a booster, but you don't want to rely on them.
Hugo, can you share more recovery content other than food?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a brilliant question. But the answer is that I don't have so much recovery content because I have no like recovery secrets. I don't have any recovery tools. I don't have any recovery boots. I don't have any saunas, no ice baths, this kind of stuff. And I never used it. Of course, I've tried it. The only thing I do for more strategic recovery is I go to my private massage therapist here once or twice a month when I feel I need it or before races. On a Sunday, just like today, I skip caffeine. That's one thing that I do. And more than nutrition, I just relax and sleep. Simple.
How do you manage to recover properly when training many hours?
Just like I said, last question, lower your stress levels. That's like the basic pillar of recovery. Lower your stress. It's not just in training, but in all aspects of life. If you have obligations, work, professional life, relationships, family, it's all about getting down the stress level to be able to recover. So even if you're training 3 times a day or 1 time a day, you can still recover at the same level if you know how to manage your stress levels. So it's all about hormonal balance and to being able to relax and recover mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and of course physically.
What is your diet like and do you take supplements?
Yeah, I answered the supplement questions and what I eat and how I eat. More details about the specific foods I eat you can find on my YouTube channel or Instagram channel. So that's the best way to get that information.
How many ice creams do you eat in a week in summer?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I think I can eat a lot of ice cream. I love ice cream, and it's also great for cooling yourself down, like these ice Calippo ice creams. Those are perfect. I can eat like this week, once or twice a day, definitely. Before or after training, it's perfect. Get some easy calories, and definitely because it's cold, it gets down your core body temperature. So yeah.
What's your top-notch recovery thing?
Recovery thing, top-notch recovery thing. There is no top-notch recovery thing. That's my answer. There is
Okay.
no such thing.
How do you manage your nutrition plan during the year?
I don't have any periodized nutrition plan. It's quite constant. The only thing I do is, Monday to Saturday I eat always the same. On the Sundays, like today, of course, I don't have any sport nutrition, but my diet my base diet is quite similar now and throughout the year.
I want to go to Plaitas Hotel. Is the gym with Concept 2 machines free?
Yeah, you can go to the gym at any time from 6 in the morning to 8 in the evening, and you have Concept 2 rows and skis.
How long are you going to be at Plaitas?
Yeah, I cannot know for sure, but I'm at least here until the end of this year, end of 2025.
How come you ended up at Plaitas?
I've been here many times in my life. I came here first as an athlete, then I was working here as an instructor for a very short period of time. I've been here as a guest instructor as well, and then the last years I've been coming here for my own training camps. So I've spent a lot of time on this resort for many years, and that's where I first met the sport management here last year, when I started with Hyrox, obviously, and then we started to discuss some opportunities at the resort, and we have grown this Hyrox community and Hyrox training at the resort to a very high standard now. So yeah, very, very happy for that.
Do you speak Spanish?
Aquí Hugo. Hola atletas. No, I don't speak Spanish, just a few phrases and words, but I try to learn.
Are you at Plaitas from the 14th of July till the 28th of July?
Yes.
Since when do you live in Plaitas and how did it come about?
Yeah, so I told it before, but for this time I moved here officially in December, but I've been here now since August last year.
How did you end up in Plaitas? How do you live in Plaitas and how did it happen? You work at Plaitas all time.
Yeah, so I live at Plaitas at the hotel, and my Hyrox training sessions 4 times a week on the resort. So 4 evenings a week you can come train with me in the woodbox.
Do you recommend nose straps?
Yeah, obviously I use this from time to time when I'm racing, and I definitely think it feels like you open up your nose a little bit more, and even if it's just like psychological or if it has an actual benefit, doesn't matter. It feels like you're getting a little bit more oxygen. So yeah, I'd recommend it. If it feels good for you, you should do it.
Events, races and competition. What do you eat before a race?
Same as usual. So for me, if it's an evening race, I have usually yogurt and banana, honey for breakfast. Then I usually go training session, and then for lunch is some sort of egg, tuna, rice usually, and then I have another meal with a few hours before, with usually always only yogurt and honey, and I add up with some sort of energy bar. I have obviously my Vitargo energy drink throughout the day, but that's the foods I eat.
What influenced you to become an athlete?
I don't have much of like influencers or inspirational athletes that I look up to, or idols like that. It's always been like a very measurable and concrete way for me as a person to like grow.
Hyrox is compared with Ironman 70.3. Can you train for both?
Yeah, I think it's obviously a little bit different time domain depending on how fast you do a Hyrox, but yeah, I think it's quite relatable in terms of a lot of the aerobic work, and we see a lot of triathletes coming into Hyrox because they had a really good aerobic capacity. And I think like for most of triathletes, and if you train for Ironman, it's very beneficial for you also to get more functional training. So yeah, why not?
It's unthinkable to do this amount of work before a race. Thoughts?
Yeah, we touched on it before, but yeah, I know most of the people, if I do a 20-hour training week and I have 2 high rocks on the evening, I mean, it's still a lower volume training week for me, and especially the race days. I mean, it's very low in terms of total training load if you compare it to like a training weekend when I do, or training week. So I mean, in context of other persons, it's not like interesting. Obviously, I know a lot of people see it that way, but for me, in context of my training load and training volume, I mean, it could be half, even if it's 15 plus hours. For yeah, kind of the same like if you train 5 hours on a regular basis, and on race week you train 3 hours. It's the same portion.
Will you be at Hyrox Rome?
Not sure, not telling.
Favorite and least favorite part of Hyrox?
Favorite, ski erg. Least favorite, I think sled pull.
Will you participate in Hyrox Oslo?
I have a ticket for Hyrox Oslo, but again, I'm not completely sure how I'm going to plan my season, so I don't know yet.
Hyrox or Ironman? Which has the brighter future?
In like terms of event and business context, I think Ironman has very few competitors like that's having this kind of Ironman event. It's very exclusive what they have. But Hyrox on the other end is like it's very much more accessible as a sport. It takes like a lot less financial and like logistical investment to do a Hyrox than an Ironman, because it comes with a lot of extra costs, and the event itself it's much more expensive. Like a full Ironman is like, I think I paid 750 euros or something, and it's, you know, Hyrox is what, 120 or 150 euros. So that's the big difference, how accessible it is. But I do think as a sport, Hyrox has also got a lot more competitors in terms of other fitness competitions coming to the surface now, especially like in the UK, but also like other areas, obviously in Europe and US and Australia. There's so many other competitors for fitness competitions. And I think that Hyrox will continue to grow to at least 2-3 years before it probably will stagnate a bit. But as a sport, we see more and more that Ironman is like integrating into like the International Triathlon Federation standards, which means that I think that Ironman has, from my sport perspective, a brighter future. Yes. And I know obviously Hyrox want to go to the Olympics. I think it will be challenging, but if this is the case, then definitely Hyrox as a concept will have a very bright future. Leading up to 2032 in Brisbane, but it's still quite far away. So I think like the brighter future has looked like coming years. It's not one of them, but I definitely think Ironman has, in some context, from a professional standpoint, more benefits.
Career, sponsorship, and finances. Oh. You are giving the answers.
Oh my
God, we have.
Let's go.
How did you transfer to full-time athlete while paying the bills? How did you become a full-time athlete? How do you afford the lifestyle?
Yeah, obviously I have 2 really strong and big sponsors sponsoring my training and my life. But also I'm a coach. I work as a coach. I have a very few athletes that I work with, but it's also definitely part of my financial income, even if I have a very limited amount of athletes.
What's your source of income, wealth to fund the athlete lifestyle?
Yeah, to start with, the athlete lifestyle is not the most financial beneficial lifestyle. People understand that. So if you're in sports, you're not in sports because of making yourself some money. Then I think you're doing it for the wrong reason. Of course, you can make a lot of money in different sports, but in our sport, as Hyrox or a lot of other sports, it's not like the primary source of income. So you need to have good partnerships and create value for people around you, and you will get value back.
Community engagement and challenges. When was the first time you said get to work?
Yeah, this is a good question, and actually, I didn't know, but I had to check it up in my social media. So, the first I found that I said it was in a story last year, 2024, in September the 15th. I had done a run on the mountain behind me here, a quite long, challenging run, and I did some sort of inspirational speech, I guess. And then I said, get to work and let's go. And that's, I think, where it started. Obviously, maybe I've said it here before, like on like some sort of training session and like that kind of stuff. But officially, that was the beginning.
Don't you think resting 1 or 2 days before racing would improve results?
I think it's possible, definitely, for some people. But I also know for certain that it hasn't been the best for me. And I think in those cases, you should do what you believe in. That's more important than to try to live up to some sort of science or any studies or any recommendations for anyone else. So I think you should do as you feel. If you feel like moving, you should move. If you feel like training, you should do that. It's more important to build confidence than to try to be at your peak physical condition, because it's extremely hard to achieve. So it's much more important to be like emotional and mental, confident and prepared in terms of the performance.
What Hyrox time do I need to hit to train with you in Prague?
In Prague, I mean, can train with any level of athletes. I mean, usually and almost never I train with anyone else than myself. It's always been the case. Very few cases I train with other people. But if you're in the gym and you have the ergs and the treadmill, I mean, it doesn't matter what level of fitness you have, you can still train out together.
How to convince and not scare people new to sport Hyrox?
Yeah, obviously lower the expectations. I mean, it doesn't need to be performance to start with, and it's a very good example here. I usually say that we have the world's most inclusive Hyrox training here at Plaitas, because on my training sessions I can have people 70 plus. I can have people that are disabled. I can have younger athletes, very low age. And they all come into the same training session and do the same stations and the same work overall. But of course, you can set the bar and the level high, or you can keep it very low. It's all about how you manage your own effort all the time.
The fun questions. Why do you wear sunglasses inside?
Yeah, I think do whatever makes you feel good.
Do you struggle to activate your chest without hitting shoulders?
No.
Do you still care about training just to look good?
I think it's a big part for me, for many. I mean, look good, feel good, do good. It's important, I think. That doesn't mean that I spend too much time training for the aesthetics, but I do think it's a big pillar. I think me, as just like many other athletes, if they feel good about their bodies and they feel comfortable in their bodies, you will also have a greater well-being, and that will probably translate to greater performance and health.
I love.
Good.
Where are those sunglasses from?
These are from Oakley.
How to manage run pace without GPS indoor?
You don't manage run pace, then you manage run effort. What you can do, if you want to have like a metric for it, you can use a power meter on your shoe. There are several brands that has power meter, and it also measures your step length, so you can see actually the pace is even more accurate than the Garmin GPS outside. So you can get a power meter for your running shoe.
Stop Q&A. Get back to work.
Get to work.